Welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access Guide video. Today we're discussing the Ranger class. If you're new here, I release weekly videos on Baldur's Gate 3, so if you like guides, news, and commentary, then consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss anything. Let's get started. The Origin tab is the first screen that you'll see when you load into character creation. I generally prefer to choose my Origin last because you'll gain certain skills and proficiencies from your class and sometimes even from your race. This is especially true for the Ranger class because, as you'll see, we're going to end up with proficiency in quite a lot of skills. That said, I want to begin with choosing a race for your Ranger. The Ranger is a bit of a hybrid class. This class combines a martial fighting style with nature and survival-inspired magic, and because of this, actually has two primary ability scores. These are Dexterity and Wisdom. And like all other classes, you should look for a race that gives ability score bonus to your primary abilities. I will plug here that it is possible to make a strength-based Ranger, but we won't be discussing that in this video, mainly because the Dexterity-based Ranger is a much better option in my opinion. I really only have one recommendation, and that is the Wood Elf. This is by far the best option. This opinion may change in the future as more races are added, and specifically if the variant human option is added. If you're totally against Wood Elves for some reason, then just look for something that gives a bonus to Dexterity and you'll be fine. Wood Elves gain a +2 to Dexterity and a +1 to Wisdom. They have proficiency in Perception, advantage against charm effects, and immunity to sleep magic, plus they also have Dark Vision. They gain Fleet of Foot and Mask of the Wild. These features grant additional movement speed and proficiency in Stealth. Under the Class tab, you'll find all the Ranger-specific class features, the first being Favored Enemy. None of the options are going to make a huge impact on your build or gameplay, so feel free to take what you like. Each option, though, gives proficiency in a skill plus an extra bonus. And first of all, I want to say that every one of these options kind of have the same problem right now, which is that they give proficiency in an intelligence-based skill. Rangers don't have much use for intelligence, and this is generally a dump stat, so while the added proficiency definitely doesn't hurt anything, it also won't be a deciding factor because it isn't super useful. So let's look at the additional bonuses that you get from each of these. Bounty Hunter increases your ability to restrain creatures. This is currently my preferred choice. Keeper of the Veil will allow you to cast protection from evil and good. This could be nice to have in your back pocket, but you likely won't be using it very often because it does require concentration. And for spells that require concentration, you can only have one active at a time. Rangers have a number of powerful concentration spells already that we're going to prefer to use instead. Magebreaker suffers from the same problem as Keeper of the Veil. It grants a spell called True Strike. I actually have a number of problems with this spell. It takes an action for that round, and it takes concentration, all just to gain advantage on an attack. And in BG3, there are much better ways to gain advantage. If you're ranged, just take the high ground, and if you're melee, you just need to move behind the target. Ranger Knight is only useful if you're making a strength-based Ranger, as you likely won't meet the strength requirement to even wear heavy armor. Plus, our dexterity is going to be very high, so we're best off sticking with medium armor. And then Sanctified Stalker gives the cantrip Sacred Flame, which is kind of a middle-of-the-road cantrip that you probably won't use. Next is the Natural Explorer feature, and these are all pretty good options. Personally, I really like the Beast Tamer as it gives the Find Familiar spell. Note here that if you plan to go with the Beastmaster subclass, you can't have both your animal companion and your familiar summoned at the same time, so you may want to choose something else. The Wasteland Wanderer options are obviously going to vary in usefulness depending on the combat scenario, as they give resistance to certain types of damage. I don't think I've really seen much cold damage so far, so I would probably recommend to go with poison or fire. Next, let's look at choosing our skill proficiencies. You'll want to prioritize dexterity and wisdom-based skills. If you hover over the skill, you can see the ability that skill uses. From taking the Wood Elf race, we've already gained proficiency in stealth and perception. I then opted for the Charlatan background. This background gives proficiency in deception and sleight of hand. While the deception is not super useful, I wanted to get the sleight of hand to help with lockpicking and disarming traps, as I won't be running a rogue in the group. And then from the skill tab, I chose animal handling, insight, and survival. Next, let's look at ability scores for your Ranger. You can go ahead and take Dexterity and Wisdom up to 16. I pretty much always shoot for a 14 in Constitution, as this contributes to your hit points, which is always useful. And for your remaining points, it's really up to you, but I opted for the 12 in Strength. In my experience so far in Baldur's Gate 3, having a bit of Strength is pretty handy because it does increase your jump distance, And for a ranger, that means more opportunity to get the high ground and gain advantage on your attacks. When you reach level 2 with your ranger, you're going to gain a fighting style and spellcasting. For fighting style, I recommend either archery or 2-weapon fighting. And for spells, definitely grab Hunter's Mark for your first one, and for your second spell, I recommend Speak with Animals if you want to open up some more story options, or Hail of Thorns for some nice AoE damage. Ensnaring Strike is also a really nice spell and combos well with the Bounty Hunter passive. Just note that it does require concentration, so you won't be able to use it with Hunter's Mark. At level 3, you're going to select your Ranger subclass. There are currently 2 options, the Hunter and the Beastmaster. If you go Hunter, the best feature to take is probably Colossus Slayer. It's a nice damage boost against enemies not at full health. I can't highly recommend this though, as in my experience so far, it seems that it may be bugged and it doesn't always apply the extra damage if you're also using Hunter's Mark. Instead, I prefer to go with Beastmaster. This will allow you to summon an animal companion, and I'm personally really obsessed with the giant spider companion. It honestly probably needs to be nerfed because it's really just a little bit too powerful. Currently, the giant spider can cast the spell Web at will. Web is a 2nd level spell. It's a large AoE that you can pop down on a group of enemies and effectively trap them if they fail their saving throw. Attack rolls against enwebbed enemies are made with advantage, and attack rolls made by enwebbed creatures are made at disadvantage. So it's a huge buff for your party and debuff on your enemy. And the really broken part about it is that the spell is supposed to require concentration, but the giant spider can put as many webs out as they want, and they also have an attack that can inflict the poison condition. And last, I want to discuss gear and combat. In Baldur's Gate 3, you have 2 weapon loadouts, so I like to have a ranged and a melee. For ranged, you'll start with a short bow, and you'll want to upgrade to a longbow as soon as you can, eventually picking up a longbow +1. For the melee bar, dual wielding works nicely and will allow you to make an additional attack with your offhand weapon. I've been using a +1 longsword and dagger for now. During combat, try to keep Hunter's Mark up on your target at all times. When using your bow attack, try to take the high ground, and when in melee, try to attack from behind the target. Both of these will give you advantage on your attack. Some magic items to be on the lookout for that can work pretty well on a ranger are the Boots of Speed, which let you dash as a bonus action, or Crusher's Ring, which will increase your movement speed. And that sums up what you need to know to get started with the Ranger. If you found this video useful, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more guides and tips to Baldur's Gate 3. I've also dropped a link to my community Discord server. This is a great place to ask questions and discuss the game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.